Shrek Forever After is way darker than people remember, because this isn't a movie about magic. It's a movie about the death of 1,000 paper cuts. It's about a man who finally got everything he ever wanted, only to realize he disappeared inside of it. By the start of the fourth film, Shrek has achieved the impossible. He has the wife, the kids, the home, and the respect of the kingdom. And the monsters aren't hunting him anymore. And he's no longer hiding in a swamp from a world that hates him. He finally won the life the first 3 movies were building towards. And that's exactly why he looks so miserable. This movie is different when you older. Shrek's problem isn't that his life is bad. It's that his life is no longer his. He has traded his primal identity for a domestic routine. Every day is a loop of changing diapers, fixing leaks, and smiling for tourists. It's a slow motion erosion of his soul. Play for laughs until you realize you're watching a character lose his self of self in real time. Now we look at the opening montage. It's a repetitive loop. This montage is also terrifying because there's no villain. There is no kingdom falling apart or dramatic tragedy. It's just repetition. Shrek isn't being destroyed by enemy. He's being worn down by the same mundane. And then comes the scene that explains the entire franchise. The birthday party is the breaking point. It's a room full of people who think they celebrating Shrek, but they aren't. They're celebrating the idea of Shrek. The tension builds through the noise and the physical crowding until a kid demands the one thing that defines who Shrek used to be. Do the roar!
Do the roar.
You know, I'd rather not.
To the crowd, it's a joke, but to Shrek, it's proof that his transformation into a nice guy has turned him into a puppet. The thing people used to fear is now something they ask for him to perform on command. He hasn't just found peace, he has been domesticated, and that's why he snaps. He doesn't snap because he hates Fiona or other kids. He snaps because he misses the feeling of being an orc. Someone who was dangerous, independent, and real. He's rejecting to the sunk-cost fallacy of his own happiness. He fought so hard to belong. He forgot who he was during the belonging. Shrek's biggest mistake wasn't being tired. It was believing that the old version of himself was actually happier. Because in part 2, we have to talk about why Shrek didn't actually miss being alone. He missed being there. In Shrek Forever After, Shrek never actually says he hates his life. He says he misses being a real ogre. And that is a confession. To Shrek, being a ogre wasn't just about looking scary. It was his identity, autonomy. It was lonely, but it was simple. Nostalgia is a liar that only shows you highlights. He remembers the quiet and the control, but he edited out the isolation. He isn't asking for a kingdom or his youth. He's asking for the feeling. He wants to feel untouchable again. But what he calls freedom was really just defense. The old Shrek pushed away the world before it could reject them. He misses the roar because a monster doesn't have to be emotionally available. He didn't have to be a husband or a father. He could just be dangerous. The war is a release for a second. He isn't safe, a family-friendly performer, and that's how exactly Rumpelstiltskin wins. He doesn't offer Shrek wealth. He offers him an identity reset. One day with no diapers, no expectations, and no do the roar. Rumple isn't selling freedom. He's selling an escape, and those are not the same thing. Shrek signed a contract willfully thinking he bought a day of freedom. What he actually bought was a front row seat to his own adventure, because in part 3, fantasy collapsed. Shrek is about to learn the difference between being unburdened and being forgotten. He thought he was going back to his swamp. He's about to realize he just walked into a world where he does not exist. First, the deal works. That's the most dangerous part of Rumpelstiltskin's trap. The dopamine hit of the past. Shrek gets to scare people again. He gets to watch a crowd panic at the sight of him, and for a split second, he feels real. He misses the fear because the fear gave him the illusion of control. But the movie doesn't let that high last. The fantasy collapses the moment he realizes that when you erase your burdens, you erase your connections. Fiona doesn't know him. Donkey treats him like a threat. His children aren't missing. There are a biological impossibility. He asks for an escape from responsibility, and he got a universe where he never mattered. This is where the script turns into a horror story. Shrek still has his memories, but he has no witnesses. He's the only person in the world who remembers the life they built. The moment Fiona looks at him with a cold, tactical indifference, she's not his wife. She's a stranger who happens to share his face.
Oh, I'm so happy I found you.
Maybe you missed orientation, but for future reference,
This version of Fiona is the most brutal mirror the movie could ever held up to him. She is what Shrek would have become if he stayed in that swamp forever, hardened, guarded, angry. She's surviving, but she isn't living. She is the real orc he thought he always wanted to be. Shrek looks at her and finally sees the truth. The old life wasn't simpler because it was better. It was simpler because he was trifling before Fiona. He couldn't act like nothing touched him because nothing reached him.
Hey! Hey! What the?
Once you know love, silence doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like a tomb. The swamp isn't a sanctuary anymore. It's a crime scene where he murdered his own future for 24 hours apiece. Because this is when the weight finally settles. Shrek realizing he wasn't running from a cage. He was running from the only people who ever saw him as more than a roar. Because in part 4, Shrek realizes the life he was running from was the only life where he was truly loved. By the end of Shrek Forever After, Shrek problem hasn't been solved. It's been redefined. He didn't lose himself because of his family. He realized his family was the only reason he finally became the person instead of just a monster. Shrek wasn't wrong for being tired or overwhelmed. That's just the weight of being human. His mistake was believing that old Shrek, the one who lived in the swamp and scared away the world, was the truest version of himself. The old Shrek wasn't free. He was just well defended. He lived alone because he was safer. He acted like he didn't care because caring meant he was vulnerable. But this is the alternate world. The fantasy of isolation dies in the silence. Being feared again doesn't give him peace or purpose. It just leaves him standing in a world where he has no witnesses to his existence. This is why the ending is so quiet but powerful. When Shrek finally returns, the routine is exactly the same. The noise is still there. The kids are still crying. Dude, the raw kid is still waiting. And technically nothing about his life changed. The cage didn't open. Shrek just realized it was actually a home. He stopped viewing the chaos as a distraction from his life and realized the chaos is his life. He doesn't need to scare people to feel powerful anymore because he finally has something better, connection. This movie isn't about a magical contract. It's about a man who got the life he wanted and almost lost it because he forgot the price of the silence. And the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time.